The iPad Pro M5 is one of the best Apple devices to use and one of the hardest to recommend. And it's not because it isn't incredible, because it is. The problem is that after all these years, the iPad still has too many people to adapt to it, instead of simply getting out of the way like a MacBook does. So in this video I want to break down the good, the bad, the real truth about living with the iPad Pro M5 and who I actually think should buy it. Now let me start with the good, because there's a lot to like here. This is an amazing device to use. It has the best display on any Apple product. It's just incredible. The speakers are great, not very far from a MacBook Pro actually. It's incredibly thin, super light, it looks premium, it's super versatile, and it still feels kind of futuristic every time you pick it up. And that matters more than people think, because the iPad Pro is one of those products that makes you want to buy it and use it. I use mine constantly. Honestly, after the Apple Watch, it's the Apple device I use the most, because the Apple Watch is always with me. And a lot of that is because it's just so easy to live with. For content consumption, web research, reading, handwritten notes, and general everyday use, there's really nothing better. And if you care about media at all, this thing is just ridiculous. Like watching videos, movies, YouTube, even just scrolling through websites, it feels premium in a way very few devices do. It also works really well with an external monitor. You've got Thunderbolt 4 here, so you can connect docks, fast storage, and displays without a problem. And on paper, that makes it feel even more like a real computer. Apple has also improved multitasking, resetting windows is better than it used to be, external display support is also better than it used to be. So the iPad is clearly more capable now, but even with those improvements, I still think the iPad experience is often best when you use it as an iPad. And here's the funny part, because the built-in display is so good that when you move over to an external monitor, it almost loses some of its magic. It's actually hilarious, because this is a $1,000 plus 5K display, and when I put them side by side, it looks like a $200 or $300 display. That's how good the built-in screen is, and probably one of the best reasons to own the iPad Pro. But when you stay on the iPad itself, especially with multiple apps open, it can still feel cramped. And maybe part of that is just getting used to it, and that's fair, but I also think part of it is actually real. The workflow still feels more constrained than it should. And that's exactly where the problem starts, because the issue here is not the hardware. The hardware is actually just absurd at this point. The M5 chip is definitely not the problem. The problem is still iPadOS. And I feel like every time I talk about the iPad Pro, I always come to this topic, the iPadOS, because that's what holds this thing back. And I say that as someone who actually used only an iPad Pro for about 2 years, back when I was a CEO of a company. So this is not me saying it can't be done, because it can. I've done it and I've loved it, that's the truth. The problem is that you feel the compromises. Some apps don't exist at all. Most of them are more limited, some CRMs just aren't optimized properly for the iPad, Excel is definitely not the same, and I'm sure there are a lot of other professional tools like that too. So yes, you can adapt, but that's exactly the point. Too often you have to adapt to the iPad instead of the iPad adapting to your work. And for me, one of the biggest examples is video editing, because they promote a lot the iPad Pro for creators. So Final Cut Pro exists on the iPad, but it's not the same as the Final Cut on the Mac. It works differently, it's more limited, and it doesn't support the kind of workflow I actually use, because I use third-party plugins, and I just can't use any on the iPadOS version. So the feeling you get is this: the iPad Pro seems like it should be able to do everything, and then you keep running into iPadOS. And honestly, I still don't understand why Apple hasn't fixed more of this. I'm not even asking Apple to put full macOS on the iPad, because I don't want it, I want the iPadOS. I'm just asking for, at the very least, Apple's own apps, the ones they fully control, to work more like they do on macOS. Because that alone will make such a huge difference. Because the hardware is already there, the power is already there, the accessories are already there, and the software is still the thing that stops this from becoming what it so obviously wants to be. And if that wasn't frustrating enough, the price makes it even harder to justify, because this thing is already expensive on its own. But if you want the full experience, or at least the version of the experience most people imagine when they buy this, then you probably also want the Magic Keyboard, which is also amazing, and that's another few $100s. Then if you want the Apple Pencil, that's more again. And suddenly, you're spending serious money on a device that still comes with serious software limitations. And that's the part that makes this really hard to recommend. Because if this was cheaper, I think a lot of the compromises will be easier to accept. But at this price, it stops being a maybe I'll adapt to it kind of purchase. At this price, you really need to know exactly why you're buying it. Now, to be fair, there are more affordable alternatives. For example, the Shift keyboard from ESR is a much more affordable alternative, and they also have pencils, and other brands have the same thing. So no, you don't necessarily have to spend Apple money on every accessory. And in some ways, I actually prefer this setup because it gives me more flexibility. But even then, that still doesn't solve the main problem. More affordable accessories can reduce the pain of the price, but they don't remove the limitations of iPadOS. And that's why this gets tricky, because once you get anywhere near the full setup price, a MacBook starts making a lot more sense for most people. And this is where loving it becomes very different from recommending it, because I do love using it, I really do. It's one of the nicest Apple devices to live with. But loving a device and recommending it are not the same thing, because I can generally enjoy using this thing and still admit that for most people it's definitely not the smartest buy. Now, to be clear, I don't think this is a fake productivity device. I think it's more of a niche productivity device. And if you fit that niche, it can be brilliant. You're going to love it. But for most people, the MacBook is still the more natural, less compromised, and the more complete work machine. And I also don't buy the argument that making the iPad more capable will somehow destroy Mac sales. I really don't. Even if this had something much closer to desktop level app support, it still wouldn't be the same product. It's a completely different device. It's more touch first, more flexible physically, more portable in a different way, more enjoyable for media, notes, and just casual use. In some ways, it's almost like a MacBook Air with fewer ports, a much better display, and a much more versatile form factor. But it's still very different. So I don't think Apple has to keep it this limited just to protect the Mac. I think both products could coexist perfectly well. And that's why this feels so close to something so amazing, while still being frustrating. But despite all of that, it still continues to be one of the Apple products I use the most, which probably says everything. So the real question is simple. Who is this actually for? And I think the iPad Pro makes the most sense for people whose needs are roughly in MacBook Air territory, but who want the flexibility of the iPad more than they want the simplicity of macOS. So if you care a lot about the display, the portability, the Apple Pencil, to take notes, to do research, for media consumption, for reading, and a more flexible form factor, then the iPad Pro is just amazing. And I also think there's a minority of professionals who can really benefit from it, like designers, some creative workflows, lighter video editing, people with very specific app setups. And if money isn't a big issue and you just want one of the nicest Apple devices to use, then by all means just go for it. But if you're buying this hoping it will replace a MacBook for serious work, I will be very careful. Because unless you already know exactly how your workflow translates to iPadOS, there's a good chance you hit the limits faster than you expect. And that's really the whole thing. So after living with the iPad Pro M5, this is where I land. It's one of the best Apple devices to use. I love this thing. But it's also one of the hardest to recommend. Not because it's bad, because it's so good that the limits feel even more frustrating. But for most people, I still think a MacBook is the safer buy. And if you only want the iPad experience for media, notes, and lighter everyday tasks, you probably don't need to spend this much to get it. Now, if you're still between the iPad Pro and the MacBook Air, you can watch this comparison here. I'll see you there. Take care.